Welcome to Scriptural Science, a presentation of Truth and Life Institute, Boston, Massachusetts, and Oba, Nigeria. The following is a subsection of the book, God of Science, written and published by Ifeanyi Chukwujima, scriptural scientist and a servant of God. This subsection's ID is God of Science 8:1. Constants are science's biggest blunder and the devil's greatest deceptive tool. Constants in scientific concepts like gravity are science's biggest blunder and the devil's best deceptive tools. Such concepts are often presented to the world as irrefutable truths, even though tucked inside them are made-up numbers that come from nothing in nature, but are mere approximations that help scientists convince the masses that they are sure of the claims they are selling to everyone. And privately, they continuously tweak these constants to get them to work in more real-life applications. Gravitational constant is one such culprit. And here is a little internet excerpt about it. Though Newton's Principia theorized the presence of the gravitational constant, it did not answer the question of the mathematical value of g. More than 70 years after Newton's death, a brilliant and fascinatingly eccentric scientist named Sir Henry Cavendish inherited a machine meant to measure the density of the Earth. The machine was the design of another scientist, Reverend John Michell, who died before he could complete his experiments. The fabulously complex machine, which was supposedly so sensitive it needed to be observed in operation from another room to avoid contaminating the results, helped produce not only the density results desired, but also led to future calculations of the gravitational constant. Cavendish's calculations were not exactly correct, but even with 21st century technology, the gravitational constant remains one of the most difficult physical constants to measure. Scientists have revised the calculations several times throughout the interim centuries, arriving in 2006 at a widely accepted mathematical expression of g equals 6.66748 x 10 to 11 m 3 kg. 1s, 2, where m equals length in meters, kg equals mass in kilograms, and s equals time in seconds. With centuries overcalculation behind them and the potential for future centuries filled with more refinements, most scientific explanations add that this equation should still include some margin for error. Newton's first law of universal gravitation states that the force of gravity between two masses is directly proportional to the product of the two masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them, or mathematically, F equals g m1 m2/d2, where g is a constant. Using the equation g equals gm/r2, the acceleration of gravity of different objects in space can be calculated. In the equation, g is gravity, g is the gravitational constant, r is the radius of the planet, and m is the mass of the planet, meaning that planets with more mass have a greater acceleration of gravity than planets with less mass. A constant in a scientific theory does not have to tell anyone decisively what is contributing the constant. As long as the value appears to be correct by producing repeatable results, the constant isn't until someone comes up with a scenario that significantly throws off its value. And a constant does not have to be a real number either. It can be imaginary. Why is the use of constant widely accepted in science? Constants help in the abstract thinking process. They help to isolate certain things in a logical field or downplay their effect so that the effect of others would rise in prominence and lead to better understanding of the logic. Scientists often determine that some constants are good approximations of the real thing, and they retain the constants. And when these approximated situations are widely accepted by the scientists, they are disseminated as scientific facts, which more often are accepted by society in the place of the biblical truths. And replacing the biblical truths automatically diminishes the importance of God in our lives. Even Christians come to accept these approximated situations as facts and begin to permit themselves to question the absoluteness of the claims of the Bible and God Himself. Science induces backsliding, and only a person of strong faith can resist its destructive force against his faith. Let us look at a classical effect of these scientific constants on faith in God. Here is the scientific definition of gravity. What is gravity? Gravity is a force pulling together all matter, which is anything you can physically touch. The more matter, the more gravity, so things that have a lot of matter, such as planets and moons and stars, pull more strongly. Mass is how we measure the amount of matter in something. The more massive something is, the more of a gravitational pull it exerts. As we walk on the surface of the Earth, it pulls on us and we pull back. But since the Earth is so much more massive than we are, the pull from us is not strong enough to move the Earth, while the pull from the Earth can make us fall flat on our faces. In addition to depending on the amount of mass, gravity also depends on how far you are from something. This is why we are stuck to the surface of the Earth instead of being pulled off into the Sun, which has many more times the gravity of the Earth. Essentially, gravity is an attractive force between objects. Most people are familiar with gravity as the reason behind things staying on the Earth's surface, or what goes up must come down, but gravity actually has a much vaster significance. Gravity is responsible for the formation of our Earth and all other planets, and for the movement of all heavenly bodies. It is gravity that makes our planet revolve around the Sun and the Moon revolve around the Earth. Though humans have always been aware of gravity, there have been many attempts to accurately explain it throughout the years, and theories must regularly be improved upon to account for previously unconsidered aspects of gravity. Aristotle was one of the first thinkers to postulate the reason for gravity, and his and other early theories relied on a geocentric model of the universe, with the Earth at its center. Galileo, the Italian physicist who made the first telescopic observations supporting a heliocentric model of the solar system, with the Sun at the center, also made strides in the theory theory of gravity around the turn of the one. In 1687, English scientist Sir Isaac Newton published his law of universal gravitation, which is still used to describe the forces of gravity in most everyday contexts. Newton's first law states that the force of gravity between two masses is directly proportional to the product of the two masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them, or mathematically, F equals gm1m2/d2, where g is a constant. Using the equation g equals gm/r2, the acceleration off gravity of different objects in space can be calculated. In the equation, g is gravity, g is the gravitational constant. Gravitational constant, r is the radius of the planet, and m is the mass of the planet. Doing the calculations, physicists have determined that the acceleration of gravity on Jupiter is approximately 85.3 feet/s2, 26 meters per square second. Pluto, on the other hand, has a value of 2 feet/s2, 0.61 meters per square second. You can see that planets with more mass have a greater acceleration of gravity than planets with less mass. If the world was a vacuum, these values would represent real life. On the Moon, the air is a vacuum, and so objects fall to the ground at the acceleration of the Moon's gravity. On Earth, however, we have air resistance, the force of air pushing against an object as it falls. This is the reason that a feather floats down to Earth while a bowling ball plummets, even though gravity is acting upon both objects equally. In order to accurately calculate the speed at which an object falls, air resistance must be accounted for. Gravity is a very important force. Every object in space exerts a gravitational pull on every other, and so gravity influences the paths taken by everything traveling through space. It is the glue that holds together entire galaxies. It keeps planets in orbit. It makes it possible to use human-made satellites and to go to and return from the Moon. It makes planets habitable by trapping gases and liquids in an atmosphere. It can also cause life-destroying asteroids to crash into planets. Let me summarize the whole claim for you. Gravity is an attractive force which every mass exerts over every other mass. We pull at the Earth, and the Earth pulls back at us, and everything pulls at everything else. Gravity holds every mass together so that it remains a discrete entity. Gravity is what keeps bodies in orbit and causes them to rotate and revolve around a larger body. In essence, in their understanding, gravity is the stabilizing force that keeps all things in the universe in harmony, thereby eliminating the need for God or His presence. Now let us look at the truth of the Bible with regard to gravity. Genesis 1 verse 2, "Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." This is before time existed, the dawn of light on. The earth is the beginning of time in the universe at large, since the universe was not created until day 4 of creation. Day 1 of creation marked the first day ever in the entire universe. So before time existed, God created the earth as a hot, molten mass, Job 38 verse 14, submerged inside a deluge of water, Genesis 1 verse 2. Dense water vapor, Job 38 verse 9, rose from the quenching of the hot mass, the molten earth, and caused thick darkness over the surface of the water, which was covering the earth, Genesis 1 verse 2. This darkness symbolized the darkness of the heart that would soon after creation descend on mankind and the world, which can only be removed through God's grace. It must be inferred that matter was created before time, space, and the universe, because the Creator of all things said so Himself. The statement, "and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters," directly translates into, "and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters, holding everything together and in position." And to be sure that this is what the Spirit of God was doing and is still doing throughout the earth and the universe today, see the following passage from the Bible. "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation." 16, "For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through Him and for Him." 17, "He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together." Colossians 1 verses 15 to 17. The statement from the passage, "in Him all things hold together," means that in Jesus Christ, all things held together. Therefore, if all things held together in Jesus Christ, Colossians 1 verse 17, what we widely refer to as gravity is the Spirit of God in Jesus Christ, John 16 verse 14, and John 14 verse 6, the way, in whose body God had created all things and gives us existence, life, accommodation, wisdom, direction, and understanding, Acts 17 verse 28, 1 Corinthians 12 verse 27, Romans 8 verses 19 to 21 KJV. We conclude then that it is the Spirit of God in Jesus Christ who holds all of God's creation together, because we read that from Genesis 1 verse 2 and Colossians 1 verse 17, etc. This was why the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters in Genesis 1 verse 2 to hold everything together and in their respective positions. Let us all consider another statement from the passage, "For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through Him and for Him." If all things, visible and invisible on the earth and in the entire universe, were created in Christ Jesus, it then means that there is nothing in existence anywhere that exists outside of Jesus Christ. That being the case, the Spirit of God who exists in Jesus Christ exists inside and all over everything that exists everywhere, with no exception. One may then ask, is God really that big? And that answer is unequivocally yes, He is that big. Look at the following passage from the Bible and consider what it says about the size of God. "Who has measured the waters in the hollow of His hand, or with the breadth of His hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on the scales, and the hills in a balance? 13. Who can fathom the Spirit of the Lord, or instruct the Lord as his counselor? 14. Whom did the Lord consult to enlighten him, and who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge, or showed him the path of understanding? 15. Surely the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. He weighed the islands as though they were fine dust. 16. Lebanon is not sufficient for altar fires, nor its animals enough for burnt offerings. 17. Before him all the nations are as nothing. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing. 18. With whom, then, will you compare God? To what image will you liken him? 19. As for an idol, a metalworker casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold and fashions silver chains for it. 20. A person too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. They look for a skilled worker to set up an idol that will not topple. 21. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? 22. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. 23. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. 24. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, than he blows on them, and they wither, and a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. 25. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. 26. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. 27. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God? 28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. 29. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. 30. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. 31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah 40 verses 12 to 31. And because God is that big, his Son Jesus Christ is that big also. Another part of the same passage above says, For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him. 20. And through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood, shed on the cross. Colossians 1 verses 19 to 20. This is why Jesus Christ proclaimed in the gospel, I and the Father are one. John 10 verse 30. And further, he expounded, Don't you believe that I am in the Father, and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father, living in me, who is doing his work. John 14 verse 10. And if you are still not sure that everything created in the universe and on the earth exists in God and his Christ, here is yet another passage from the Bible with more explanation for you. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. 5. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. 6. One God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. 7. But to each one of us grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. 8. This is why it says, When he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. 9. What does he ascended mean except that he also descended to the lower earthly regions? 10. He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens, in order to fill the whole universe. Ephesians 4 verses 4 to 10. And if you are curious the form of our existence within God and his Christ, look at this other passage from the Bible, for in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Acts 17 verse 28. God does not only have control over you, he influences your thoughts and directs your every action to match your desires. So, in essence, the Spirit of God at Genesis 1 verse 2 was doing the following and still does them today. The Spirit of God held the earth in place, that is completely submerged inside the water, with no part of the earth anywhere close to the surface of the water. The Spirit of God completely maintained the water in a spherical shape so that the water covered completely the entire surface of the spherical earth submerged in it. The Spirit of God held the water together and prevented the water from spilling away, since the water and the submerged earth were both suspended on nothing, that is, holding them in orbit. Light has not even appeared at this point, nor had the sun been made to create the orbital energy science claims is supplied by the sun. The Spirit of God maintained the dense water vapor that rose from all around the surface of the water, spherical, in a spherical envelope around the water, who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb. When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, Job 38 verses 8 to 9. The Spirit of God create all the materials as they exist today, imparting the various chemical and physical, and later biological, properties to each in their forms and states of existence. The Spirit of God is the chemical and covalent bonds that held the constituents of both the earth and the water together in their independent existence. Here are more passages from the Bible for your pleasure and enlightenment. Go through them and determine for yourself whether God knew what He was talking about or not. Is God not talking all serious science in all these? Should we believe God or dismiss these uncontested truths? Apply all your scientific knowledge and expertise to the following and the rest of the scientific wonders God laid out for humanity in the Bible and see if you have enough understanding to challenge God. Job 38 verses 4 to 7. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Job 38 verses 8 to 11. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, this far. You may come and no farther. Here's where your proud waves halt. Job 38 verse 14. The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. Job 38 verses 32 to 33. Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Isaiah 45 verses 11 to 12. This is what the Lord says, the Holy One of Israel and its Maker. Concerning things to come, do you question me about my children or give me orders about the work of my hands? It is I who made the earth and created mankind on it. My own hands stretched out the heavens. I marshaled their starry hosts. Proverbs 3 verses 19 to 20. By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew. Amos 9 verse 6. He builds his lofty palace in the heavens and sets its foundation on the earth. He calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out over the face of the land. The Lord is his name. Let us summarize the two claims for gravity, human science's definition for gravity and God's definition for gravity. Human beings, through worldly wisdom, have determined and continue to maintain that. Gravity is an attractive force which every mass exerts over every other mass. We pull at the earth, and the earth pulls back at us, and everything pulls at everything else. Gravity holds every mass together so that it remains a discrete entity. Gravity is what keeps bodies in orbit and causes them to rotate and revolve around a larger body. In essence, gravity is the stabilizing force that keeps all things in the universe in harmony, thereby eliminating the need for God or his presence. Gravity involves a constant, gravitational constant, whose value G equals 6.66748 x 10 to 11 cubic meters kg, 1s, 2, where m equals length in meters, kg equals mass in kilograms. And s equals time in seconds has been corrected so many times over the centuries and still requires that it continue to undergo these adjustments to make it produce accurate values in all of its applications. And God, in the Bible, maintains that gravity is simply the Spirit of God at work in everything that God created on the earth and in the entire universe, visible and invisible, known and unknown. The Bible tells us that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters in Genesis 1 verse 2, and the Bible did not tell us that this Spirit of God ever lifted from the waters and the earth any time during the 6 days of creation or afterwards, because God remains in everything he created and all remained in him, and that God continues to hold everything together and control and manage everything. One God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. Ephesians 4 verse 6, leading to the following conclusion: God is infinite energy, plus the sum total of all the energies that exist everywhere in the universe and on the earth. Visible and invisible, thermal, nuclear, sonic, light, magnetic, electrical, chemical, potential, hydrostatic, and all the other forms of energy known and unknown. And all these are summarized in the following elementary equation as E God equals E infinity plus sigma n, where E God equals God's energy. E infinity equals infinite energy. En equals total energy of its kind in the universe. N equals the number of energy types available in the universe, known and unknown, enthalpies and entropies, etc. So, who should we believe? God, who created everything out of nothing and still manages and controls them, or human beings like us who believe that God does not exist and devises fancy ways to obscure the wisdom of God by covering up their assumptions and approximations and fancy maneuvers that trumps most of mankind intellectually and exclude them from the debates. The reason gravitational constant has taken this long to fine-tune is because the assumptions made as to what is contributing the constant are not entirely true. Take pi, for instance. Although that constant is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to the diameter of that circle, pi can be arbitrarily replaced in an equation with a ratio of integers, such as 22/7 to produce an approximate result. Yet 22/7 explains absolutely nothing about a circle. They are simply random numbers picked to approximate a real physical entity whose value is known. The Bible infers that as these bodies were ushered on their positions in space, God arranged them in clusters to form galaxies, set the galaxies and the individual bodies in orbits and interrelationships, and set their motions and functions. Galileo is widely hailed for postulating that the Earth and the other planets are revolving around the Sun, thereby making the Sun the center of our solar system. And the world quickly dismisses those who once believed that the Earth is the center of the universe. The Sun only became the center of our solar system after the Sun was created by God on day 4 of creation. The truth remains that the Earth is the center of the universe, since the Earth was God's focal point in the creation of all things in the universe. In the beginning, the Earth, inside the water surrounding the Earth, was the only things in orbit because there was no universe at that point. Yes, in orbit because God told us that upon light's first impingement on the Earth and the dark waters surrounding it, the Earth instantly started rotating, making every bit of the Earth saw the light within 24 hours of the light's introduction to the Earth and the dark waters surrounding it. Genesis 1 verses 3 to 5 NIV, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. For God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. 5 God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. The Earth remained the only body in orbit for 3 full days before the Sun, the Moon, the stars, and the universe were created. And the Earth began to rotate around the Sun. It is tradition with God throughout the Bible to carry over everything he started without losing one beat. Secondly, the solar system, being extremely small in comparison to the whole universe, still makes the Earth the center of the universe. With God, it's all about common threads. God's common thread on the animal world got Charles Darwin and all the evolutionists all twisted and out of sync, causing them to extrapolate minor variations into non realities and confusing the entire human society with them, thereby denying people the grace that was given freely to all, and thereby hurtling them towards the eternal lake of fire. Here is God's confidence about his creation activities. As God was crafting his masterpiece, the angels watched and celebrated. Here is the scripture. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang? Together and all the angels shouted for joy? Job 38 verses 4 to 7. It has become increasingly common for scientists to seek a constant to make up for their failures in establishing predicted correlations. One of the biggest hot-button topics the scientific world is currently pursuing is the search for the God particle, the Higgs boson particle, which scientists is responsible for imparting weight to all other particles that have mass in the universe. A particle believed to be the Higgs boson particle, which was recently detected in their search, was analyzed, and the result suggests just the opposite of the real and certifiable observation that the universe is constantly expanding. Their results suggested that the universe, shortly after the so-called Big Bang, would have imploded and disappeared. Here is that article for you. Say what? Higgs boson theorist claims universe shouldn't exist. The universe shouldn't exist, at least according to a new theory. Modeling of conditions soon after the Big Bang suggests the universe should have collapsed just microseconds after its explosive birth, the new study suggests. During the early universe, we expected cosmic inflation. This is a rapid expansion of the universe right after the Big Bang, said study co-author Robert Hogan, a doctoral candidate in physics at King's College in London. This expansion causes lots of stuff to shake around, and if we shake it too much, we could go into this new energy space, which could cause the universe to collapse. Physicists draw that conclusion from a model that accounts for the properties of the newly discovered Higgs boson particle, which is thought to explain how other particles get their mass. Faint traces of gravitational waves formed at the universe's origin also inform the conclusion. Of course, there must be something missing from these calculations. We are here talking about it, Hogan told Live Science. That means we have to extend our theories to explain why this didn't happen. How the Big Bang went bang. One possible explanation holds that during the fiery flash after the primordial Big Bang explosion, matter raced outward at breakneck speeds in a process known as cosmic inflation. This bent and squeezed space-time, creating ripples known as gravitational waves that also twisted the radiation that passed through the universe, Hogan said. Though those events would have occurred 13.8 billion years ago, a telescope at the South Pole known as the Background Imaging of Cosmic Extragalactic Polarization, or BICEP, recently detected the faint traces of cosmic inflation in the background microwave radiation that pervades the universe, in particular, characteristic twisted or curled waves called the B-mode pattern. Other scientists have questioned the findings, saying the results may just be from dust in the Milky Way. How did the universe begin? Gravity wasn't the only force at play in the early universe. A ubiquitous energy field, called the Higgs field, permeates the universe and gives mass to the particles that trudge through the field. Scientists found the telltale sign of that field in 2012, when they discovered the Higgs boson and then determined its mass. 6 implications of finding a Higgs boson particle. With a greater understanding of cosmic inflation's properties and the Higgs boson mass, Hogan and his colleague, Malcolm Fairbairn, who is also a physicist at King's College London, tried to recreate the conditions of cosmic inflation after the Big Bang. What they found was bad news for, well, everything. The newborn universe should have experienced an intense jittering in the energy field, known as quantum fluctuation. Those jitters, in turn, could have disrupted the Higgs field, in essence, rolling the entire system into a much lower energy state that would make the collapse of the universe inevitable. Missing ingredient. So, if the universe shouldn't exist, why is it here? The generic expectation is that there must be some new physics that we haven't put in our theories yet because we haven't been able to discover them, Hogan said. One leading possibility, known as the theory of supersymmetry, proposes that there are superpartner particles for all the currently known particles, and perhaps more powerful particle accelerators could find these particles, Hogan said. But the theory of cosmic inflation is still speculative, and some physicists hint that what looked like primordial gravitational waves to the BICEP telescope may actually be signals from cosmic dust in the galaxy, said Sean Carroll, a physicist at the California Institute of Technology and author of The Particle at the End of the Universe: How the Hunt for the Higgs Boson Leads Us to the Edge of a New World. If the details of cosmic inflation change, then Hogan and Fairbairn's model would need to adapt as well, Carroll told Live Science. Carroll was not involved in the study. This isn't the first time that physicists have said the Higgs boson spells doom for the universe. Others have calculated that the Higgs boson's mass would lead to a fundamentally unstable universe that could end apocalyptically in billions of years. The mass of the Higgs boson, about 126 times that of the proton, turns out to be right on the edge, in terms of the universe's stability, Carroll said. A little bit lighter, and the Higgs field would be much more easily perturbed. A little heavier, and the current Higgs field would be incredibly stable. Hogan is presenting his findings Tuesday at the Royal Astronomical Society meeting in Portsmouth, England. The study was published May 20th in Physical Review Letters. Tia Goes Live Science. To detect signs of an event that happened 13.8 billion years ago translates to our telescope at the South Pole picking up info from as far away as 8.09466048 by 1,022 miles away from the Earth. Our telescope at the South Poles picked up an event from 8.09466048 times 10 to the power of 22 miles away. Really? What did we do to isolate everything else that exists between us, and this much distance away to ensure that none of them contributed to what we saw? What these scientists think is happening is really not what is happening. Because of their ignorance of God and their ignorance of the existence of the supernatural dimension that coexists with our world, they fail to realize how the powerful God of the universe can create situations from a few inches from their noses that look like they are coming from trillions of miles away from them, so that they may continue in their ignorant chase after nothing. This is a wake-up call, not an insult. God is God of love, but he does not wait when it comes to illuminating ignorance. Supersymmetry proposes that there are superpartner particles for all the currently known particles. Hooray! It looks like the human science is finally catching up with the Bible. There are indeed superpartner particles for every particle in the natural world and the natural universe, every particle already known to man, and those yet to be discovered by man. Every natural particle has a corresponding spiritual partner. Everything in nature, every human being, every plant and animal, every natural phenomenon, every human society, every human establishment, every classification in nature, and every quantifiable designation in the world and the physical universe has a corresponding spiritual partner. Everything in nature that has a discrete designation and attribute has a spiritual component that controls it. Here is the Bible telling you so. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. 5 one Lord, one faith, one baptism. 6 one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. 7 But to each one of us grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. 8 This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. 9 What does he ascended mean except that he also descended to the lower earthly regions? 10 He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. Ephesians 4 verses 4 to 10. There is only one God, one Spirit, one Lord, who is the Father of all mankind, and the Lord of the earth and the entire universe. And this one God, who created everything in the first place, is over all and through all and in all. This places God squarely in control of everything he created through his Spirit. Supersymmetry could, therefore, be explained as parallel worlds. One is the natural, the physical world we live in, and the other is the supernatural, the spiritual world that directly controls the one we live in. These parallel worlds exist, not side by side as in physically separated parallels, but rather one is contained completely within the other, in proportionate distribution. Virtually everything or every component in the natural is completely saturated with the spirit that controls it. The parallelism of the two worlds is not in terms of geometrical congruency, but rather in terms of the one-to-one pairing of spirit to reality, for God's efficacious control of everything in our physical realism. The supernatural world is fully aware of the natural world and has to be aware of it because it has dominion over it. The natural world, on the other hand, is oblivious of the supernatural world, since it could neither see nor detect the supernatural world. And since the natural world is unaware of the supernatural world, the natural world dismisses as madness the claim that it is influenced and controlled by this parallel supernatural world. That is the way the devil wants it, and he has operated that way since the incident at the Garden of Eden where Eve believed the serpent and rebelled against God. The darkness on the surface of the water in Genesis 1 verse 2 symbolizes this. Darkness that fell on the human mind, which prevents mankind from seeing spiritual truths. Mankind is ignorant of the dark powers of the devil and the overwhelming corrupting influence of the darkness that has enveloped the human mind. By so doing, the natural world readily plays into the hands of the powers and principalities that are truly in control of our world and has been steering the world into all the wrong directions. That is why the Bible prophesies that there must be a time of reckoning for the natural world, a time of judgment by the true God of creation who made everything and gave his commands to the humans for the benefit of their salvation. That is what the Bible is talking about when it speaks about powers and principalities in the heavenly realm. And the supernatural realm far surpasses the natural realm in power and authority, leaving the natural completely at the mercy of the spiritual powers. Satan, who is spirit, stole the dominion of the earth from Adam and Eve in the natural, and remains in control of all human societies from that point forward. How does he stay in control? He appoints his princes as heads of every single human government, small or large, powerful or weak. His princes then control all human leadership by exerting their authority and influence over the human leadership, causing them to operate as directed by these spirits. Humanity, or more specifically, scientists, have spent so much time, energy, and resources chasing after the Higgs boson particle to confirm their claims that the Earth, the universe, and man came into existence through chance and time, only to end up with the conclusion that the universe should never have existed in the first place, but should have collapsed and disappeared if their theories were correct. And that is a bit of a setback for the human science, but it will not be for long. We have sure ways of manipulating things. Until they support our theories, we could possibly come up with some constant of imaginary nature. Just listen to these comments from some scientists with regard to the disappointing Higgs boson conclusion. That means we have to extend our theories to explain why this didn't happen. The generic expectation is that there must be some new physics that we haven't put in our theories yet because we haven't been able to discover them. Yes! All we have to do anytime we run into problem with our genius speculations is add a little here and take away a little there. And if that still doesn't work, throw in a constant and bam, we got it. Is this really the way to learn the truth? God can give us the truth if we obey him and start all our inquiries with the Bible. Most of what we need is already written for us. What we are currently lacking is faith and a little humility.